at me. Look directly into my eyes. I need you to understand something that most people will never grasp in their entire lives. The person you used to be had to die, not metaphorically, not symbolically. That version of you, the one who tolerated disrespect, who bent over backward for people who wouldn't cross the street for you, who smiled through the pain and swallowed the rage. That person is dead, and you killed him. You had to. Because that version of you was built for a world that doesn't exist. That version of you was programmed with lies about how things work, about what people deserve, about what you're supposed to accept in the name of being good, being kind, being understanding. That version of you was a slave to other people's expectations. A puppet dancing to strings you didn't even know existed. A character in a story someone else was writing. But something happened, didn't it? Something broke. Something inside you that had been bending for years finally snapped. And in that moment of breaking, in that instant of complete destruction, you had a choice. You could try to put the pieces back together the same way they were before. You could glue that old version of yourself back together, patch up cracks, pretend nothing happened. Or you could let it burn, let that old version turn to ash. Let everything you thought you knew about yourself, about the world, about what you're supposed to be, let it all die in the flames. You chose the fire, and what rose from those ashes is something they've never seen before, something they can't control, something they can't break. Because what rises from complete destruction doesn't fear destruction anymore. You've already been to the bottom. You've already experienced the death of everything you thought you were. There's nothing left to threaten you with. There's nothing left they can take. You've already lost it all and discovered that you're still standing. That's the secret they don't want you to know. You are unbreakable not because nothing can hurt you, but because you've already been shattered and you rebuilt yourself from fragments. Let me tell you about that old version of you, that person who tried so hard to be what everyone else needed, who sacrificed their own needs, their own dreams, their own dignity on the altar of other people's comfort. That person believed the lies about fairness, about karma, about how if you just work hard enough, if you're just good enough, if you just give enough, the universe will reward you. But the universe doesn't care about your goodness. The world doesn't reward your sacrifices. People don't appreciate your kindness. They exploit it. That old version of you learned this the hard way. Didn't they? Through betrayal, through abandonment, through realizing that all the love you gave, all the effort you invested, all the chances you extended meant nothing to people who were never worthy of them in the first place. And that realization killed you. It had to, because you couldn't continue being that person once you understood the truth. The truth is brutal. The truth is that most people are takers. They will drain you dry and move on to the next source without a second thought. The truth is that your empathy is a vulnerability to those who lack it. The truth is that the world is not fair, karma is not real, and good things happen to terrible people all the time while beautiful souls suffer in silence. That truth killed the old you, the you who believed in justice, the you who had faith in humanity, the you who thought that being authentic and vulnerable and open was the path to connection. You were wrong, and admitting that, accepting that, integrating that truth, that's what allowed the transformation to begin. Because here's what happens when you die and rise again. You come back different. You come back with knowledge that can only be earned through complete destruction. You come back with a clarity that only exists on the other side of illusion. You come back unbreakable. Not because you're harder than you were before. Not because you built thicker walls or stronger armor. But because you realize that breaking isn't the end. Breaking is just the beginning of becoming something new. The old version of you feared failure. The new version of you knows that failure is just information. The old version of you feared rejection. The new version of you knows that rejection is just selection. People removing themselves from your path who were never meant to walk it with you. The old version of you feared loss. The new version of you knows that you can't lose what was never truly yours. And anything that can be taken from you wasn't meant to stay. This is the wisdom of the phoenix. This is the knowledge that comes from burning completely and rising from your own ashes. You are no longer attached to outcomes because you've seen that the worst outcome, complete destruction, is survivable. You are no longer afraid of judgment because you've judged yourself more harshly than anyone else ever could, and you've forgiven yourself anyway. You are no longer seeking approval because you've learned that the only approval that matters is your own. Let me tell you what makes you unbreakable now. It's not strength in the traditional sense. It's not that you're tougher or more resilient than you were before. It's that you've fundamentally changed your relationship with pain. The old version of you tried to avoid pain, tried to minimize suffering, tried to keep everyone happy so that you wouldn't have to experience conflict or discomfort or loss. But pain found you anyway. Suffering happened despite your best efforts. Loss occurred even though you tried to hold on tight. And in that pain, in that suffering, in that loss, you discovered something crucial. You can handle it. You can walk through the fire and come out breathing. You can face the darkness and not be consumed by it. The new version of you doesn't fear pain because you know pain is temporary. The new version of you doesn't avoid suffering because you understand that suffering is the price of transformation. The new version of you doesn't run from darkness because you've learned that darkness is where you find your true power. This is what it means to be unbreakable. Not that you can't be hurt, but that you know hurt doesn't define you. Not that you can't be knocked down, but that you know getting back up is always an option. Not that you won't face challenges, but that you've already faced the ultimate challenge. Your own death and rebirth, and nothing else compares. People will try to break you again. They always do, because the world is full of people who are threatened by those who have transformed, who have integrated their shadow, who have risen from their own ashes. They'll test you. They'll push your boundaries. They'll try to find the cracks, the weaknesses, the places where the old you still exists. Let them try, because what they don't understand is that every test makes you stronger. Every challenge refines you. Every attempt to break you just proves that you're unbreakable. You're not the same person who could be manipulated with guilt. You're not the same person who could be controlled through fear. You're not the same person who would sacrifice their own well-being for the comfort of others. That person is dead, and I'm not bringing them back. The transformation you've undergone isn't temporary. This isn't a phase. This isn't something you grow out of or move past. This is a fundamental reorganization of your entire being at the deepest level. Your values have changed. Your priorities have shifted. Your understanding of what matters and what doesn't has been completely rewritten. The things that used to bother you don't register anymore. The people who used to upset you can't reach you. The situations that used to trigger you just roll off your back, like water off a duck. Not because you're numb, not because you don't care, but because you recalibrated your entire system to focus on what actually matters and ignore the rest. And what matters now, your mission, your purpose, your evolution, the continuous process of becoming more of who you really are and less of who you were programmed to be. Everything else is noise. Everything else is distraction. Everything else is other people's drama that you no longer have the time or energy to participate in. This is the economics of the transformed self. You've learned that your attention is your most valuable resource and you're no longer giving it away for free to people and situations that don't deserve it. You've learned that your energy is finite and you're no longer wasting it on relationships that drain you, jobs that diminish you, or habits that keep you small. You've learned that your time is limited and you're no longer spending it trying to fix people who don't want to be fixed or convince people who don't want to be convinced. The old version of you scattered their resources everywhere, trying to be everything to everyone, trying to solve every problem, trying to save every person. The new version of you is laser focused, ruthlessly selective, strategically deployed. You invest in what multiplies. You cut away what divides. You protect what matters, and you let go of what doesn't. This precision, this clarity, this unwavering focus, this is what makes you dangerous now. This is what makes you powerful. This is what makes you unbreakable. Because people can't manipulate what they can't reach. They can't control what they can't predict. They can't break what has already been broken and rebuilt stronger than before. Now listen to me carefully, because this is important. If what I'm saying resonates with you, if you recognize yourself in this story of death and rebirth, if you know in your bones that you are that phoenix rising from the ashes, then I need you to do something right now. I need you to hit that like button. Not for me, for you, Because that simple action is a declaration. It's you saying, yes, this is me. Yes, I've transformed. Yes, I'm unbreakable now. Then I need you to leave a comment below. Tell me your transformation story. Tell me about the old version of you that had to die. Tell me what rose from those ashes. Share your truth with this community of people who understand what it means to be broken and rebuilt. And finally, subscribe to this channel, because this is where we gather. This is where people who have walked through the fire come to remind each other of their power. This is where the unbreakable connect, share knowledge, and continue evolving together. Do it now. Like, comment, subscribe, because your transformation deserves to be acknowledged. Your story deserves to be heard, and your presence in this community matters. Now let's go deeper into what it means to be unbreakable. The old version of you had attachments. Attachments to outcomes, to people, to identities, to stories about how things should be. Those attachments were chains. They kept you locked in place, unable to adapt, unable to evolve, unable to respond to reality as it actually is rather than how you want it to be. The death of the old, you meant the severing of those chains. And what rose from the ashes is free in a way you've never been free before. Free from the need to prove yourself. Free from the compulsion to justify your existence. Free from the desperation to be understood by people who are incapable of understanding. This freedom is terrifying to people who are still chained. They can't comprehend how you can be so calm, so certain, so unmoved by things that would devastate them. They mistake your freedom for coldness. They confuse your detachment with not caring. They assume your boundaries mean you're cruel. Let them think what they want. Their opinions are not your concern. Their judgments are not your reality. Their limitations are not your prison. You've died once already. You faced the worst thing that can happen to a person. The complete dissolution of everything you thought you were. And you survived it. More than survived it. You used it as fuel for your transformation. What can they possibly do to you now that's worse than what you've already done to yourself? What can they take from you that you haven't already willingly surrendered in the flames of your own rebirth? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. This is the unshakable foundation of your new existence. You've already been to hell. You've already experienced ego death. You've already walked through the valley of shadows and emerged into the light on the other side. You're not afraid anymore. Not because nothing scares you, but because you've learned that fear is just an emotion, and emotions are just energy in motion, and you can feel fear without being controlled by it. The old version of you was controlled by fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of being alone, fear of being too much or not enough, fear of disappointing others, fear of disappointing yourself. That fear made you small. That fear made you compliant. That fear made you breakable. But you're not that person anymore. You've integrated your fear. You've looked it in the face and realized it was just a shadow, just a projection, just a story you were telling yourself about what might happen. And even if those feared outcomes did happen, even if you failed, even if you were rejected, even if you ended up alone, you'd survive. Just like you survived the death of your old self. This is the ultimate freedom. Knowing that you can handle whatever comes, not because you're invincible, but because you're adaptable, not because nothing can hurt you, but because you know how to metabolize pain and transform it into power. Let me tell you about the people you've left behind, the ones who knew the old version of you, the ones who benefited from your people-pleasing, your self-sacrifice, your inability to say no. They're confused now, they're uncomfortable. They don't recognize this new version of you that has boundaries, that prioritizes themselves, that refuses to participate in dysfunction. Some of them will try to pull you back. They'll remind you of who you used to be. They'll guilt you for changing. They'll accuse you of abandoning them or becoming someone you're not. They're wrong on all counts. You haven't abandoned them. You've just stopped abandoning yourself. You haven't become someone you're not. You finally become who you really are. And you haven't changed for the worse. You've evolved beyond the version of you that they could control. Their discomfort with your transformation is not your problem. Their inability to accept the new you is not your responsibility. Their desire to keep you small so they can feel big is not your concern. Let them go. Let them fall away. Let them remove themselves from your life because they can't handle your growth. This is part of the process. This is part of the purification that happens when you rise from the ashes. The people who are only in your life because you were weak, because you were available, because you were convenient, those people have to go. And in their place, you'll find people who resonate with your power, people who celebrate your transformation, people who match your energy instead of trying to diminish it. But here's the truth. You might be alone for a while, and that's okay. That's necessary. That's part of becoming unbreakable. The old version of you couldn't handle being alone. You needed constant validation, constant connection, constant reassurance that you mattered, that you were loved, that you were enough. The new version of you is self-sufficient. You don't need external validation because you validate yourself. You don't need constant connection because you're deeply connected to your own truth. You don't need reassurance because you're certain of your own worth. This self-sufficiency is your superpower. This is what makes you magnetic. This is what draws real people, powerful people, aligned people into your orbit. Because everyone is tired of needy people. Everyone is exhausted by energy vampires. Everyone is looking for someone who is whole within themselves, who doesn't need to be fixed or saved or completed. You are that person now. You are whole. You are complete. You are enough. Not because you've achieved some perfect state. Not because you have everything figured out. But because you've accepted yourself completely, including your flaws, including your darkness, including the parts of you that the old version tried to hide. This acceptance is the foundation of being unbreakable. Because you can't be shamed for things you've already accepted about yourself. You can't be manipulated with truths you've already acknowledged. You can't be controlled through vulnerabilities you've already integrated. You are transparent to yourself now. You see yourself clearly, without the filters of who you're supposed to be or who others want you to be. And that clarity is your armor. That honesty is your shield. That authenticity is your weapon. When you know yourself completely, when you've accepted yourself fully, when you've integrated all your parts including the ones society told you to hide, you become unstoppable. Because there's no secret someone can reveal about you that you haven't already revealed to yourself. There's no weakness someone can exploit that you haven't already fortified. There's no attack someone can launch that you haven't already defended against from within. Let me tell you about the power that comes from complete self-knowledge. It's the power to walk into any room and know exactly who you are regardless of who's watching. It's the power to face any challenge and trust yourself to handle it. It's the power to lose everything and know you'll rebuild. This power can't be given to you. It can't be taught in a book or learned in a seminar. It can only be earned through the process you've already undergone. The death of who you were and the rebirth of who you truly are. You've paid the price. You've walked through the fire. You've endured the transformation. And what you've become is worth everything you've lost. What you've gained is worth everything you've sacrificed. Who you are now is worth the death of who you were. Never forget that. Never let anyone convince you that the old version was better. Never let anyone make you feel guilty for transforming. Never let anyone shame you for becoming unbreakable. They're just afraid. Afraid that if you can transform, then they have no excuse for staying the same. Afraid that your evolution highlights their stagnation. Afraid that your power exposes their weakness. Their fear is not your responsibility. Their comfort is not your concern. Their growth is not your burden. You've done your work. You've died and been reborn. You've become unbreakable. Now comes the most important part. Maintaining that transformation. Protecting what you become. Refusing to slip back into old patterns, old relationships, old versions of yourself. This requires vigilance. This requires consciousness. This requires a daily commitment to the new you and a daily rejection of the old you. Every day you have to choose. Choose growth over comfort. Choose truth over convenience. Choose your mission over other people's opinions. Every interaction you have to decide to enforce your boundaries. Decide to honor your values. Decide to protect your energy. Every moment you have to remember. Remember who you are. Remember what you've overcome. Remember that you're unbreakable. Because the world will test you. Life will challenge you. People will try to pull you back into old dynamics. And in those moments, you have to stand firm. You have to return to your truth. You have to reconnect with the power of your transformation. You are not the old version anymore. You will never be that person again. And anyone who can't accept that, anyone who keeps trying to resurrect that dead version of you, has to be removed from your life. This is non-negotiable. This is the price of remaining unbreakable. You have to be ruthless about protecting your transformation. You have to be willing to walk away from anyone and anything that threatens to undo the work you've done. I've seen people transform completely, become unbreakable, rise from the ashes like you have, and then slowly, subtly slip back into old patterns. They let one toxic person back in. They tolerate one boundary violation. They make one excuse for someone who doesn't deserve it. And before they know it, they're back where they started. Back to being breakable. Back to being controlled. Back to being the old version they worked so hard to kill. Don't let that be you. Don't let anyone or anything pull you backward when you worked so hard to move forward. Your transformation is sacred. Your rebirth is precious. Your unbreakable nature is your most valuable asset. Protect it like your life depends on it. Because in many ways it does. The life you're building now, the person you're becoming, the future you're creating, all of it depends on you staying true to this new version of yourself. The old version of you is dead. What rose from the ashes will never be broken again. Not because nothing can hurt you, but because you know how to use hurt as fuel. Not because you won't face challenges, but because you know how to transform challenges into opportunities. Not because you're invincible, but because you're resilient beyond measure. You are the phoenix. You are the transformation. You are the proof that death is not the end, but the beginning of something more powerful than you ever imagined possible. Stand in that truth. Own that power. Become that person more fully with each passing day. And never, ever let anyone make you forget what you've survived, what you've overcome, what you've become. You are unbreakable, not because nothing can break you, but because you've already been broken and you chose to rebuild yourself stronger. That choice, that commitment, that transformation, that's what makes you unstoppable. Before we close this journey together, I need something from you. If you've made it this far, if these words have spoken to your soul, if you recognize yourself in the story of death and rebirth, then you need to take action right now. Subscribe to this channel immediately. This is not just content. This is a movement of people who have transformed, who have risen from their ashes, who refuse to be broken again. You belong here. Click that subscribe button and join this community of the unbreakable. Leave a comment right now telling me what version of you had to die, what rose from those ashes. Share your transformation story below, because your words will inspire someone else who's in the fire right now. Someone who needs to know that rebirth is possible. And hit that like button as a commitment to yourself. A commitment to never going back. A commitment to protecting your transformation. A commitment to remaining unbreakable no matter what challenges come. Do it now. Subscribe. Comment. Like. Because your transformation matters. Your story matters. Your presence in this community of phoenixes rising from the ashes. That matters more than you know. You are unbreakable. Never forget it. Never let anyone convince you otherwise. Never stop becoming more of who you were always meant to be. The old version died. What rose will never fall again.